What's up, everybody? We're about to go through a handful of JJK questions. Some of these are going to be anime friendly, but some of them are not. So we're going to do the anime friendly ones first, and then I'll give another spoiler warning. And first up, we got a question from Tyler who wants to know, why was Megumi about to summon Maharaga against Toto in season 1? And this isn't a dumb question, it's more of just a dumb maneuver from Megumi that's hard to make sense out of. And I don't think you really can make sense out of it, honestly, because this is a meme at this point in the community. Megumi summons Maharaga at the slightest inconvenience. But here, especially, who knows? Because he knows that no one has ever been able to tame this thing before, and they're really just having like a schoolyard kind of bully tussle, and he's about to bust out the Divine General himself. So I don't know. There's no good real explanation for this, especially under a microscope. I think it was more so just narratively to tease the fact that Megami has this power. So maybe at that point in writing the story, Gege didn't fully know what that was going to mean, although he had to have. But I just still imagine at that point in the story, it wasn't like fully thought out in the same way that we can look back on it now. Because, yeah, it makes no sense. Next up, we've got two questions from the same person, BB Sukuna, and they first sent me a question via Instagram, but I wanted to reach out to you because I wasn't sure which one was yours. I didn't see any Instagram handles that looked like your Cash App handle, so if you could send me another message and tell me your Cash App handle so that I know that it's you, that would be excellent. And then BB Sukuna's other question was, could I please explain projection sorcery? And yes, I actually already made a full in-depth video on this, complete with stick figure diagrams to fully illustrate what's going on. So I think you watch from Instagram since that's where you DM'd me, but if you happen to be watching on YouTube, I will pin a comment on this video with a link to that video. But once we get connected on Instagram, I can also send it to you there. Next up, Zillatech asks, if Kenny had been planning the culling games for centuries, how did he plan to start it if Mahito, and by extension Idol Transfiguration, had only existed for a few months? Now, there's not like an explicit answer to this in the canon. I can say this is how, but reading between the lines, my theory on this is just that, he's been planning, like you said, for hundreds, if not 1,000+ years for trying to make his goals come to fruition, right? So I think it's not necessarily that 1,000 years ago he had the entire thing mapped out and knew that at some point he would need idol transfiguration. I think his goals have evolved over the years, and it's going to be hard to pinpoint when exactly it culminated in the idol transfiguration play. Now, obviously, he had these binding vows from up to 1,000 years ago, so pieces were in play, but I think it's still possible that he knew he wanted to set these things up, but didn't necessarily know how he would do it until that moment came. So it's possible that until he met Mahito, he didn't know how he was going to bring it all together, and then learning about idol transfiguration was like, boom, that's how I can do it. But alternatively, even though Mahito was a fresh disaster curse, all things considered, something we're told is that, disaster curses never truly go away. So, even though Mahito and, excuse me, Jogo and Hanami are all gone at this point, those disaster curses representative of those collective fears of humanity will one day return. They won't look exactly the same. They won't have the same personality. But because those things are never going away, those fears will still manifest one day, into them again, if that makes sense. Anyway, this is getting long-winded. Point is, it's possible that even before Mahito, a similar curse existed, or at least a similar curse technique existed, so Kenjaku could have known of it conceptually, and potentially was even waiting until Mahito, or the next idol transfiguration curse spirit, if you will, was born. So again, there's no explicit answer to this, but so to wrap it all up in a nutshell, I would just imagine that he didn't explicitly plan to use that for 1,000 years, and more so just decided to use it when it came in front of him. So yeah, alrighty y'all, this is the spoiler checkpoint. So for anybody not caught up with the manga, you might want to keep scrolling. Our next question comes from Kaizo Kumar over on YouTube, who wants to know, if Choso could sense his brother's deaths, why didn't he sense it when Sukuna ripped out Yuji's heart? And it's simply because at that point in time, Choso was not incarnated yet. He still just existed in that test tube vial along with the rest of his brothers. And while still technically alive in some sense, he wasn't fully. You could think of it in the same way that Choso in that form clearly could not use blood manipulation or do anything else besides just sit in that vat. So similarly, his ability to sense his brother's deaths wouldn't have been realized at this point. Next up, we've got another YouTube question from someone else. That's kind of funny. They want to know, do I think Hikari's 777 jackpot will be special amongst the jackpots and have an enhanced outcome? I think so. I think that would kind of be a missed opportunity if not. Now, I don't know enough about like culturally if 777 is like the lucky string of numbers like across the world. Like that's obviously a very lucky number here in America. I'm assuming that's probably pretty global, but I honestly don't know. Assuming it is though, I would imagine that maybe something slightly different happens, a slightly better outcome. I don't know what that would be though, considering how his domain and jackpots work. And for anybody that is confused about Hikari's domain, I made a whole video. It's like my longest video I've ever put out explaining that beast of a technique. So check it out. Next up, we've got a question from Christian who wants to know, how does the soul splitting sword appear after Mai's death? And that's simply just because Mai literally like traded her life force in to create that sword. If you remember, Mai's curse technique is creation. However, when she was alive, it was very weak because of her unique situation with Maki. They were kind of holding each other back, So even though she can only create, like one bullet a day or whatever, there's certain restrictions that are lifted on this technique when you are literally trading your life for it, which is what Mai did. And we saw this again with Yorozu, who traded her life to create Sukuna's special grade curse tool that I cannot remember the name of right now, but you'll know the one I'm talking about. So there is precedent for this. So seemingly people with that creation style curse technique are able to create like one item of special grade quality if they trade their life for it. Next up, we've got another question about Maki from Rico, who wants to know, what's up with Maki's healing? Great question. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, it's just that Maki like lost an eye seemingly at one point, but then she got it back. Now, maybe she didn't fully lose it, but point is she took some like rough damage, and then we see her and she's all scarred up, obviously, but for the most part, she's fine. And this also could be referring to after the flames from Jogo, but I don't think that's what this question is referring to. If so, oops, since you're in the spoiler section now. But I think we can just chalk it up to her heavenly restriction. We know that Toji's heavenly restriction, he can't even get drunk, kind of like Captain America, like his immune system is that strong and powerful. And we know this from the JJK fan book, by the way. So I would imagine that similar to that, just all of their healing and natural body systems are turned up to 11, not just speed, strength, durability, also healing, it'd be heavenly restricted. Which obviously, like, humans can't heal in the way that, like, reverse curse technique could regrow a limb, obviously, but we do have healing factors, like even you and I, right? So Makis are just turned all the way up. So for my money, that's how she's doing it. Finally, today we've got this question from Jacques, who wants to know if Sukuna sacrificed Megumi with the binding vow to get the dimensional slash. Now, for any context here, the dimensional slash is the one that, gave Gojo that 50% discount. And I've got videos talking all about the slash if anyone needs like an in-depth explanation. But for this specifically, I don't think so. I do think Sukuna made a binding vow to use that slash in order to get rid of the hand signs and chants necessary, which we've seen him use since. But I don't think he sacrificed Megumi specifically, because we know Megumi still exists, due to the fact that the rule Kenjaku added specified that Megumi was the one that had the rights to start the merger. Now that's obviously because Sukuna is in Megumi's body, but if Megumi was gone, I don't think that distinction would have had to have been there. Now, if you didn't mean Megumi, like his soul or his body, his life specifically, I do think it's possible for Sukuna to have sacrificed the 10 shadows or something like that. Especially because he's probably done with the 10 shadows. Not to say that there aren't still uses for it, but Sukuna probably doesn't need it anymore. So that's definitely possible. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you to everyone here who made this video possible. I really appreciate y'all.